The hum of the city was a constant lullaby outside my window, a gentle backdrop to my temporary life in San Francisco. At 27, I was supposed to be in my forever home, but a burst pipe had turned my charming little Victorian into a construction zone, forcing me into a rental apartment downtown. It was a decent place, a modern high-rise with sleek, if somewhat impersonal amenities, but it lacked the soul of my own space. Still, it was a roof over my head, and I was determined to make the best of it, especially with my home renovation stretching into its second month. When I first moved in, one of the first things I did was arrange for internet service. This was back when wireless fidelity, or Wi-Fi as most people called it, was still relatively new and exciting. I wasn't particularly tech-savvy, preferring to trust the professionals with such intricate setups. So when the installer from the internet company came, I just gave him free rein, assuming he knew best. He put the router in a convenient corner, punched in a generic network name and a basic password, and assured me everything was good to go. I signed off, happy to have connectivity, oblivious to the small seed of future frustration he'd inadvertently planted. For the first few weeks, everything was perfect. Streaming my favorite shows, video calls with friends and family, working from home when necessary, it all flowed seamlessly. San Francisco's digital heartbeat seemed to pulse through my apartment with effortless grace. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, things started to change. A slight buffering here, a delayed load time there. It was like a tiny, almost unnoticeable current of molasses had begun to seep into my digital pipeline. I'd be trying to watch a documentary, and suddenly the screen would freeze, the little spinning circle of doom mocking me. Downloads, which used to complete in minutes, started stretching into what felt like hours. My online gaming sessions became a frustrating exercise in futility, with my character constantly teleporting around the screen, seemingly disconnected from reality. The technical term for this, I later learned, was high ping time, the delay between sending a signal and receiving a response. Mine had gone from a zippy double-digit number to a sluggish, infuriating triple-digit range, making anything requiring real-time interaction utterly unbearable. It was like trying to have a conversation with someone shouting from across a canyon. I tried all the usual tricks. I unplugged the router, waited 30 seconds and plugged it back in, a ritualistic act of hopeful desperation. Sometimes, for a fleeting moment, it would seem to improve, only to slide back into its painful crawl. I restarted my laptop, checked for updates, even tried connecting with an Ethernet cable, but the problem persisted. It wasn't my devices, it was the connection itself. The digital slowness started to feel personal, an invisible hand reaching into my life and messing with my daily routines. It was maddening, like trying to run through quicksand. My frustration mounted with each buffering screen and failed video call. I relied on my internet for everything, from staying connected with my distant parents to unwinding after a long day at my marketing job. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a constant source of low-level stress, gnawing at my patience. I felt like I was paying for a premium service and getting dial-up speeds in return. My peace of mind, already a bit strained by the upheaval of living in a temporary space, was slowly eroding. Finally, after weeks of this digital torture, I decided enough was enough. I called the internet service provider. The first call was a classic odyssey through automated menus and hold music that seemed designed to test the limits of human endurance. After what felt like an eternity, I finally reached a human being, a cheerful voice named Kevin who sounded like he was reading from a script. "Have you tried restarting your router, ma'am?" he asked. "Yes, Kevin, about 100 times," I replied, trying to keep the exasperation out of my voice. "The problem isn't going away. My video streams are crawling, downloads are taking forever, and my ping time is through the roof." Kevin walked me through a series of basic troubleshooting steps, each one more futile than the last. He promised to reset the connection from our end, which apparently did nothing. He then suggested a technician visit, but warned it could be days, even a week. I reluctantly agreed, hanging up feeling no more enlightened or hopeful than before. Days turned into a week, and then another. I called again, enduring the same purgatorial hold music, only to be told there was a backlog. The digital quicksand was getting deeper. I missed important work video conferences, had to leave the apartment just to download a large file at a coffee shop, and my evenings were no longer a sanctuary of streaming, but a battle against buffering. My lowest point came one particularly rainy Tuesday evening. I had planned a cozy night in, finally settling down to watch the latest episode of my favorite historical drama, only for it to buffer every 30 seconds. My tea grew cold, my patience evaporated, and I found myself staring at a frozen screen, tears of sheer frustration pricking at my eyes. It felt like an invasion, a deliberate act of sabotage against my peace. I was paying good money, and someone, somewhere, was stealing my access. The thought solidified into a burning conviction. It took 2.5 weeks for a technician to finally show up. He was a young man named Alex with kind eyes and a tired expression, clearly used to dealing with exasperated customers. He went about his work efficiently, plugging in his diagnostic tools, muttering to himself as he checked signals and connections. After about 15 minutes, he turned to me, a slight frown on his face. "Ma'am, it looks like your signal strength is really weak for your plan, almost like someone else is using it heavily." My heart gave a little jolt. "What do you mean, someone else is using it?" He adjusted his glasses. "Well, your router is broadcasting an open network, and the password is pretty simple. It looks like at least one of your neighbors has tapped into your wireless fidelity. They're basically siphoning off your bandwidth, which is why your speeds are so slow and your ping time is so high. It's like having a party line, but you're paying for everyone's calls." A wave of understanding, mixed with furious indignation, washed over me. Tapped in, someone had deliberately stolen from me. It wasn't just a technical glitch, it was a direct violation. My mind immediately flashed back to the installer who had set up my router with a simple, generic password. I had been naive, trusting, and someone had taken advantage. My blood simmered. "So, what can we do?" I asked, my voice tighter than I intended. "We can change the network name and set a new, strong password," Alex offered, already pulling out his laptop. "That should kick them off and secure your network. It's usually the first thing we recommend if we suspect unauthorized access." As he worked, a mischievous idea began to form in my mind, a tiny spark of revenge igniting in the ashes of my prolonged frustration. I watched him type, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He looked up. "What would you like the network name to be?" I paused, a slow smile spreading across my face. "How about BADGE357? I suggested, making sure the number was pronounced clearly. "And for the password, I want the longest, most randomized string of characters you can possibly create. Letters, numbers, symbols, everything." Alex blinked, then a faint smile touched his own lips. "Interesting choice, ma'am. Consider it done." He worked for another minute, then confirmed the changes. "You should be good to go now. Your speeds should return to normal almost immediately." And they did. The change was instantaneous and glorious. My video streams loaded in high definition with zero buffering. Downloads zipped along, completing in seconds. My online games were suddenly smooth and responsive, my ping time back in the low to mid-double-digit range. The digital quicksand had vanished, replaced by a superhighway of data. The sense of relief was immense, but it was overshadowed by a quiet, smug satisfaction. Someone out there was about to have a very bad day. Life returned to a semblance of normal. My evenings were once again for relaxation, my work-from-home days productive. The incident faded into the background, a minor annoyance that had been resolved. Or so I thought. A few days later, I found myself in the rental office, located in the lobby of my building. I was paying my monthly rent, pulling out my checkbook, when the door swung open and a young woman stormed in. She was a cute brunette, probably in her early 20s, dressed in what looked like a silk robe and a pair of fuzzy slippers. Her hair was a mess and her face was flushed with anger. She looked like she had just rolled out of bed, straight into a digital crisis. "I need to talk to someone about my internet," she practically shrieked at the startled office manager, a perpetually calm woman named Ms. Jenkins. "The cops shut down my internet, my business is ruined." My hand paused over my checkbook. "Cops?" My ears perked up. This sounded familiar. Ms. Jenkins, ever the professional, adopted her soothing customer service voice. "Ma'am, I'm not sure how the rental office can help with police matters, especially regarding your internet. Have you contacted your service provider?" "They said it wasn't them," the brunette retorted, pacing agitatedly. "I know it was the cops. They posted their badge number, for crying out loud." My pen slipped on the check. Badge number. My heart gave a little skip. A smile, slow and deliberate, began to spread across my face. Oh, this was going to be good. This was going to be very, very good. "What made you think it was the police?" I asked, feigning innocent curiosity. I tilted my head, putting on my most sympathetic expression. She stopped her pacing and turned to me, her eyes narrowed. "Because the name of the network I was using, the one that suddenly disappeared, was BADGE357. Why else would it be named that?" Only the cops would do something like that. She threw her hands up in exasperation. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from openly laughing. The sheer audacity, the delicious irony of her conclusion. She thought the police had named my network. My internal satisfaction meter was off the charts. And why would the police shut down your internet? I inquired, pushing for the details, eager to hear her justification for their supposed actions. She hesitated for a moment, glancing around the office. Ms. Jenkins was still at her desk, engrossed in paperwork, clearly trying to appear unobtrusive. The brunette leaned in slightly, lowering her voice, but not enough that I couldn't hear. "Because I run an adult webcam service," she whispered, as if confessing a dark secret. "It's completely legal, mind you, I have all my licenses and everything, but it's explicit. And the cops probably thought I was doing something illegal, even though I wasn't. Now my clients can't find me?" I simply nodded, a neutral expression on my face. What someone chose to do to earn a living was, as far as I was concerned, their own private business, as long as they weren't harming anyone or, more importantly, stealing from me in the process. My previous frustration over the internet had less to do with who was using it and everything to do with the fact that they were doing so without permission, at my expense, and severely impacting my ability to use the service I was paying for. She had stolen from me, plain and simple, and now she was reaping the consequences. She must have seen the placid look on my face and mistaken it for sympathy or perhaps opportunity. Suddenly, her entire demeanor shifted. The anger melted away, replaced by a saccharine sweetness. Her eyes began to flutter, batting at me with an almost comical exaggeration. She leaned against the counter, her posture shifting to emphasize her figure, a subtle wiggle of her backside accompanying the movement. "You know," she purred, her voice dripping with artificial seduction, "your service seems to be working just fine, doesn't it?" I suppressed a smirk. "Mine's just great, actually. Back to normal." "Well," she continued, her voice dropping to a husky whisper, "since my service is, completely shut down by those pesky officers, maybe, just maybe, you could allow me to tap into your service. Just temporarily, of course, in exchange for favors." She punctuated her offer with an exaggerated wink, followed by a suggestive nudge of her hip. Nudge nudge, wink wink, say no more. My smile widened. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. The culmination of my petty, yet thoroughly satisfying revenge. She had presented the perfect opening, gift-wrapped in a bow of entitlement and misplaced allure. "Sure," I said, my voice bright and utterly guileless. "My router is BADGE357 and my password is..." Before I could even utter the first syllable of the non-existent password, her eyes widened in dawning horror. The flirtatious expression vanished, replaced by a look of sheer, unadulterated fury. Her jaw dropped. "You!" she shrieked, her voice suddenly piercing the quiet of the rental office. Ms. Jenkins flinched at the sound. "You ruined my business, you set me up, I have clients depending on me, and blah blah blah." Her voice dissolved into an incoherent stream of accusations and complaints, her arms flailing dramatically. She looked like a cartoon character whose strings had been cut. I simply continued to smile, a calm, serene expression on my face. The chaos swirling around me was a symphony of vindication. I had paid my rent, my internet was fast, and the person who had stolen from me was now experiencing a very public, very satisfying meltdown. I calmly picked up my rent receipt from the counter, folded it neatly, and tucked it into my purse. Without another word, without a change in my tranquil expression, I turned and walked away, leaving her sputtering and fuming in the rental office. The heavy glass door swung shut behind me, muffling her increasingly high-pitched tirade. I never heard her complain about the internet again, nor did she ever approach me. I assume she eventually got her own service, perhaps learning a valuable lesson about the importance of paying for what you use, or at least not stealing from people with a knack for creative network names. We passed each other occasionally in the parking lot or the hallways, and she would always shoot me the coldest, iciest glare imaginable. Each time, I'd just offer a polite, almost imperceptible nod and a slight, amused smile. Those looks, I have to admit, were somewhat amusing. A small, constant reminder of the petty, yet profoundly satisfying, victory of Badge 357. My renovation was finally complete a few months later, and I moved back into my home, but the memory of that San Francisco apartment and the delicious digital justice served remains a fond, private anecdote in my personal history.